Welcome to the Silent Thinking Podcast, a space to slow down, breathe, and reconnect. Today, I'm reading from When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister by Dave Roberts and Patty Furino. Just listen and let the stillness support you. Part 1. Setting the Stage. By stating your intention to the universe, you become co-creators of your personal experience. Patty. Chapter 1. Embracing the Power of Change. September 18, 2010. It was a beautiful autumn day in central New York. After many months of planning, organizing, and finally successfully launching the Beyond the Words Creative Approaches to Grief conference, a leisurely drive to Old Forge, New York, was a much-needed break. My spirits were high this morning as my wife, Sherry, and I drove to pick up 3 of the key conference presenters, Carla, Mitch, and Sharon. Carla Blowy is a certified projective dreamwork facilitator I have known since 2007. At that time, she was the editor of the Living with Loss magazine in Montrose, Colorado. We connected on a phone call about my expired magazine subscription. We shared our stories of loss, and subsequently she asked me to contribute an article to her magazine. I eventually met Mitch Carmody and Sharon Stews through Carla at a Compassionate Friends National Conference approximately 2 years later. Carla, Mitch, and Sharon presented progressive and innovative spiritual approaches to transform grief at our Beyond Words conference. Excited to get started, the 5 of us piled into my car for a day trip through the Adirondacks. Because my guests live in different parts of the country, I wanted to share the best of what the Adirondacks had to offer. I have lived in the Adirondack region my entire life and enjoy the changing seasons, especially during the fall when the leaves transform into magnificent colors. The bold and vivid colors of the leaves were fully on display across the mountains on the trees that served as the backdrop for our trip to Old Forge. I was excited to share the picturesque scenery with my colleagues. Our conversation quickly turned to the conference as everyone enthusiastically shared their observations, thoughts, and takeaways. Over 120 attendees from all disciplines and parts of New York State met at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Oneida, New York. They had the opportunity to listen to national and regional speakers present on creative approaches to healing in loss and grief. As one of the program coordinators, I was thrilled by the generosity of my colleagues in the bereavement field who volunteered to share their expertise. The immediate feedback that I received was positive. There were numerous requests for similar future conferences, and I was proud that our conference committee's work was such a success. As the ride progressed, Carla, Mitch, and Sharon began to engage in a conversation containing deep spiritual reflections about life and afterlife. They spoke from a place of faith and trust in the universal plan, for which there is no evidence, only internal knowing that comes from the heart and soul. I listened deeply and found myself caught in my own thoughts. As I continued to drive, I whispered this simple intention to the universe. I want to be where they are. My undergraduate degree was in psychology, a discipline that relies on the understanding of behavior through rational and scientific means. My sincere declaration for increased spiritual understanding was in direct contrast to my belief that behavior change could only be assessed using objective, evidence-based criteria. As we continued to drive, my eyes were suddenly drawn to my BlackBerry phone as a notification suddenly appeared. I quickly glanced down and saw an announcement by a colleague, Ron Villano, for a November 11, 2010 event on Long Island called Embracing the Power of Change. Ron was a radio personality from Long Island, and on numerous occasions I was a guest on his show to discuss grief following the death of a child. The appearance of this announcement intrigued me because during the conference I was speaking with a woman from Long Island. She mentioned that if I ever came down her way, that she would love to show me her Long Island. I first received a phone call from this very same woman in late August of 2010, who encountered a problem on the website while registering for the Beyond Words conference. She informed me that her page suddenly disappeared. Not knowing how much was received, she thought it was best to call and speak to someone to confirm what additional information was needed. The Reverend Patty Furino shared that she was a minister who volunteered her services for the Angel of Hope statue on Long Island. Reverend Patty explained that the statue is a place where parents can go anytime during the year to remember and connect with the love of their child. With gentle care, I asked if she had lost a child. Reverend Patty then offered the details of her relationship with a young man who passed on December 13, 2005. She explained how he touched her family's life in a very special way, and his passing was the catalyst for directing her ministry with grieving families. We spent 45 minutes sharing our stories of loss and made an instant connection. Patty asked me if I had ever received a sign from Jeannine. I told her I don't put much faith in the significance of signs, but that one year I did have a double rainbow appear in the sky over my home on Father's Day. My wife Sherry pointed it out to me, believing that it was my Father's Day gift from Jeannine. By sharing our stories, we connected and vowed to give each other a giant bear hug when we met. When Patty and I crossed paths at the Beyond Words conference, we did indeed exchange that bear hug. Was it mere coincidence that Ron Villano's announcement for embracing the power of change spontaneously manifested on my phone the day after the conference and a month after our conversation? Only time would tell. Upon arriving in Old Forge, we began to walk through the town when a monarch butterfly landed directly at mine and Carla's feet. I stopped in my tracks and was filled with awe, as I have never had a butterfly land that close to me. I felt it was demanding to be noticed. In hindsight, I could see that the day was full of magic. Upon further reflection, I realized that I had an experience once before with a butterfly shortly after the death of my 18-year-old daughter, Jeannine. She passed from alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma, a rare and aggressive connective muscle tissue cancer. I was taking a leisurely stroll around my neighborhood approximately 6 months after her passing. I was thinking about Jeannine and all that our family had been through when a single butterfly appeared and began accompanying me on my walk. Looking back, I also thought this was a sign of some kind. I now realize that on both occasions that I wasn't far enough along in my spiritual evolution to understand the greater significance of the butterfly's appearance in both Old Forge and on my walk around the neighborhood. In fact, it would be safe to say that any event I interpreted as a sign in early grief was bittersweet. I was gratified that Jeannine chose to make herself known to me, but her presence, though welcomed, was also a painful reminder of her physical absence. In the wake of Jeannine's death, I searched to find meaning and reason in her pain and suffering. The academic in me relied on my psychology background, using evidence-based models to explain behavior. I began reading academic books about grief, such as Helping Bereaved Parents, A Clinician's Guide, and Facilitating Post-Traumatic Growth by Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. I also read The Spiritual Lives of Bereaved Parents by Dennis Klass, which addressed, among other things, creating continued bonds with our deceased loved ones to effectively work through grief. In retrospect, I understood the concept of continued bonds on an intellectual level, but had not yet embraced it with my own daughter. Cherry and I also attended a bereaved parents support group facilitated by a Catholic nun named Sister Rose Troy. Having the support of other bereaved parents helped me realize that I was not alone in my grief. Our once monthly meetings gave me a space where I was understood, did not have to explain my grief, and where I felt safe. I began to understand the power of community in helping individuals work through grief. I began searching for books by other bereaved parents which described the painful journey of loss and grief similar to my own. Many of these books provided validation of my journey and hope that I could someday effectively manage the challenges presented by Jeannine's death. But all of my reading and research was not enough to help me find peace. My declaration of intent for something more on that trip to Old Forge indicated that a greater awareness was needed to help me effectively work through the grief of my daughter's death. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me. If this brought you peace, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need a little stillness too. Until next time, keep listening inward.